Chelsea reads A Nihilist Princess, Chapter 2, A Twofold Life. Prince Krylov loved his daughters as parents do who have ceased to live and love save in their children. She gratified his vanity as well as his affection by her beauty, her perfect grace, and her cleverness, and by the admiration which she excited wherever she went. He was therefore much troubled at Wanda's sudden headache and dizziness. "It's not anything serious," she said. "A few hours of sound sleep will put an end to it." As soon as she got home, she ran up into her room. "Quick, quick, Katya," she said to her maid. "Let us make haste. They must be waiting so impatiently for us." She tore off her bracelets, the gold band in her hair, the clasps that fastened her dress, and threw them all pell-mell with the greatest haste upon a little round table. "You look so beautiful this evening, dear princess," exclaimed Katya. "What do you mean, Katya? I've told you expressly that I desire for you to call me Wanda, not princess. Understand me now, once and for all, wretched aristocrat." "Someone might overhear us," objected Katya. "A servant maid calling her mistress by her first name. But who is there to overhear us? Sometimes I'm tempted to doubt the sincerity of your conviction." "It's true, and the scholar has gone far ahead of the teacher." "Ah, no, I can't acknowledge that. Sometimes the princess within me revolts at the role that I am playing. I'm not yet as simplified as you think I am. But I shall be after a while. I am quite determined." She gave great stress to the last word. "Dear Wanda, your logic astounds me. Now then, do we or do we not desire equality, the abolition of rank and of every privilege that comes from birth and wealth?" "Well, certainly we do." "Well, I do not consider myself better than you, but I consider myself your inferior in the point of devotion. Did you not give up your independence to come here and teach me the new faith?" Katya was brushing the princess's superb hair. She took her lovely head with both hands and, stooping over, kissed Wanda on the forehead. "We've heard complaints enough," she said. "Now there's so much time for the cause, we must not waste time in words. Yes, you're right. Make haste. Is my dress ready?" "Yes." "You must hide my hair completely, so they will not think I'm a woman." Katya Lewinsky was the daughter of a Polish man who served the Russian government. Her father had obtained an important post in Poland and harried his countrymen in the most oppressive way. Katya, disgusted with the conduct of her father, left his house and went to Zurich as a student. Thence she came to Petersburg to study medicine, so as to be able to support herself. In Zurich, as well as in Petersburg, she found herself thrown in with a set of socialist students. Their doctrine inflamed her youthful imagination. She had met, at Zurich, a celebrated Russian physician named Michael Fedorov, who had confided to her a secret mission in Petersburg. There, she had been presented to Wanda Krylov by a Polish man named Podolski. Finding that she had not money enough to continue her studies, she applied for help to the princess, who was known to be very generous towards her mother's fellow countrymen. Wanda became deeply interested in Katya Lewinsky, and the girl, very probably following out her secret instructions, asked to be allowed to enter her service of the princess, and in this humble capacity had undertaken to convert her mistress to her own doctrines. She had succeeded beyond her fondest hopes. Brought up among the wild steppes of Ukraine, Wanda's nature was still and dreamy. A spoiled child, who her father adored, she had known no obstacle to her will. Her independent nature brooked no control, and yet her keen sense of justice revolted at the tyranny of the strong over the weak. How often had she implored her implacable parent to lighten the unjust punishment of some unfortunate serf? Among the souvenirs of her childhood there lingered such dismal recollections. Men beaten like dogs for nothing, women scourged without mercy, whole villages razed to the ground for insurrections against their lord. Often, in her dreams, she saw again these scenes of desolation, Groups of old men, women, and children bathed in tears, or flying from the vengeance of their persecutor. Then would rise before her the sad, fair face of her mother, who she remembered only indistinctly. Wanda was herself a Polish woman at heart, and she loathed in Russian despotism. In her mind, the cause of Poland was the cause of humanity. Left entirely to herself, she had read a great deal of particularly French literature. In it she had discovered the breath of modern life, the mighty seed which impregnates art, science, and liberty. Her ardent imagination was captivated by these noble ideas. The great characters of the French Revolution aroused her enthusiasm. She idolized those heroes. She would willingly have died a martyr for their cause. In her father's estates, she looked upon the peasants bending under their burden, ignorant, passive, brutalized, and she thought how great a work it would be to lift their drooping heads, to cast a ray of light upon their dull minds, to make men of these slaves. In spite of her father's opposition, she founded several schools and presided herself over the examinations. So, when she met Katya Lewinsky, her mind was already prepared to receive the new faith. She was a born revolutionist, and her soul, fired with the love of justice and the longing for high deeds, found in its creed a noble and all-sustaining food. She was romantic as a Polish, and as violent as a Cossack. She delighted in conspiracies, in secret correspondence, and running out at night in every extreme measure. Intrepid and enthusiastic, as most of the Slavic women are, she loved danger, adored acts of heroism, and thrilled with delight at every heroic deed. She was a very valuable recruit for the Revolutionary Party on account of her position, her influence, her beauty, and her wealth, which she offered most liberally to carry out her views. From the moment that she joined the party, a complete change passed over her. She had been in the habit of openly expressing her liberal views, and everyone had been surprised to hear her talk as she did in Prince Krylov's drawing room. They laughed at it, as they laugh at everything that falls from the lips of a pretty woman. The prince attached no importance to it whatsoever, and was amused at what he considered a piece of juvenile exaggeration. But, once initiated into the society, Wanda became prudent and even artful. She was learning to look into the hearts of others without revealing her own. When Wanda had put on her disguise, Katya exclaimed, "I think you're more beautiful dressed as a man than you are in evening toilette. Just look at yourself." "Indeed, I have not the time," answered Wanda. She wore a fur cap, which was entirely concealed her superb hair, and a toulouse lined with sheepskin. A Circassian belt worked in gold confined it at the waist. By her side hung a small dagger. Her feet were thrust into high felt boots. Her slender figure set off this national costume to great advantage. Katya wrapped herself with a long coat and placed upon her head a hat lined with fur. "I am ready," said Wanda. "Are you sure that Fedor is at the corner?" "Yes, he's been waiting there for more than an hour." "Very well. I will set you down at the club, and then I will go to the place where they expect me." Katya did not even know who expected Wanda. "You know that you cannot come with me," said the princess. "Believe me, it gives me the greatest pain to not be allowed to tell you everything." "I do not expect it of you," answered Katya. "Absolute secrecy is necessary for the success of our great undertaking." They left the house by a back staircase which led to the offices, and passing through a little door, found themselves in a narrow, dark street. At the corner of the palace bridge, they found Fedor waiting for them in a sled. Wanda jumped into the light, graceful vehicle and took the reins. Katya seated herself by her side. Fedor climbed in behind, and the spirited little horses dashed away, striking fire from the stones to the street in its rapid pace. It was a lovely winter's night, one of those polar nights in which the moon shines with a clear, icy light, in which starlight is intense, and the crystallized snow glistens like powdered marble. The cold was sharp and cut like a knife, but the ardor which burned in Wanda's heart rendered her quite insensible to the weather. She did not even glance around her, to gaze upon the superb spectacle that Petersburg presented as it lay clothed in the blue rays of the winter moon. Before her, in Vasily Ostrov, the merchant exchange, the custom house, and the university buildings stood out clearly defined in the cold light. Behind them, upon the island of Petersburg, could be seen the black outlines of the fort, while above them all towered the bold spire of the church of St. Peter and Paul. Across the river could be seen a corner of the Winter Palace, Alexander's monument with its angel, the immense palace of the Admiralty, and the gigantic silhouette of St. Isaac's Cathedral, with its 4 bell towers, its tiara of columns, and its golden cupola. Over all, flakes of snow, like touches of light, brought out the effect of an architecture. The great river looked like a white valley. Here and there lay a few boats frozen stiff in the ice. Wanda, instead of turning towards the Nihilist bridge, drove towards the Neva, which is frozen so hard in winter that it can be driven over without danger. The sled creaked on the hard snow, as does a diamond when it cuts a pane of glass. Leaning back, Wanda held the reins in her small, nervous hands, for her animal needed to be held in. He trotted across the river as securely as though he were on the high road. Smoke flew from his nostrils, his whole body was steaming, and his tail, covered with little icicles, shone like diamonds. She turned her horse's head into the Vasily Ostrov and drove quickly through a perfect labyrinth of streets. She stopped before a tall, large house, such as the speculators are at present building in Petersburg. Katya jumped down. "I shall be here again at 2:00, or at 2:30, she said. "On! On!" cried the princess. The horse started off like the wind. At the end of 5 minutes, Wanda stopped her sled again, and throwing her reins to Fedor, got out. "Wait for me," she said to the servant. She went up a little alley. About midway she perceived, standing in the doorway, a human form, muffled up to its eyes in a fur cloak. She involuntarily gave a start, and instantly entered a house that she had evidently been looking for. A porter came towards her. He said, "Russia." She answered, "Liberty." Then she opened a door. He led her to a room on the ground floor, where, by a dim light of a lantern, she could distinguish his feature. "Ah, is it you, Korolev?" she said to the pretended porter. "Just now as I came in, I thought I saw a man who seemed to be watching me." "I suppose the house has been denounced," answered Korolev very quietly. "It doesn't matter if they surround it. They won't find anything." "I trust your prudence," said Wanda. "Go on. I will follow you." They crossed several large rooms, poorly furnished. They heard nothing but the sound of their own footsteps, and yet the house seemed to be inhabited. "Have you heard from the police?" asked Wanda. "No. They're going to make some arrests. Take care." They entered a long passageway. "Where are you taking me?" questioned Wanda. "I'm going to take you before the Revolutionary Committee." They stepped before a door, which opened into a sort of cellar, in which some barrels and a chest laid. Korolev pushed aside a chest and touched a spring. A small, skillfully concealed opening in the wall was disclosed, revealing a narrow stairway. Korolev began descending the steps. Wanda followed him. When they reached the bottom, they found themselves in a low, damp cellar, and Wanda heard steady thuds, like the throbbing of an engine. "What is that noise?" said she. "You will soon see," answered Korolev.